Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of The Deep Dive. I'm here with Naga, someone I've casted for a long time. Oh my word, since like Copenhagen Flames, like when you were playing against like Bazooka Puppies, like god damn. Did you want to like give a quick intro to yourself, what team you're playing for right now, and like your a small little history lesson for everybody?
Yeah, well, so I'm 23 right now, and I've been playing since I was 16, and I think that was actually when you cast me as well from my very first year, to be honest. I'm playing for Team Peps now in EU, OWCS, and we're also trying to qualify for the what do we call that? EWC, I guess.
Okay.
And I played for them for 1.5 year now, Team Peps. Yeah,
Yeah, quite a
that's like
while.
the quick rundown. Yeah, it actually is. It surprised me every time I think about it.
For like a an Overwatch team that's like, oh my god, you play for them for a year? That's crazy. Normally, like you're shifting teams
Right.
over and over. I did want to bring up a couple of things. I don't know if you recognize this from December 25th, so Christmas 2017. If I ever fail on my way to success, I want to be sure that I did my 100% best to try and reach success. Dude, just fucking rhyming. 16-year-old kid doing deep feeling tweets. Thinking? Question mark, heart.
Yeah. I have been called out for my tweets when I was younger quite a lot, to be honest. And I still am till this day, but I think they've gotten better.
Hey, that's fine. I mean, hey, you're at that age. If I look back, if I had like history of that kind of stuff, Facebook. I don't have my Facebook anymore. I deleted that a long time ago. Like, it would still be the same stuff. Like, come on, everybody was like that
Yeah.
back then. I also have this funny image that I found. I'll try and I'll put it in the description. But it's another great practice with the boys. Hashtag bring the flames, and it's you with a bowl of milk with mini muffins, and I can half see the lobby, and it's Henningson's in there. Obviously, you're in there. Gustav's in there. There's a few other names that are like super blurry. That's from 2017 as well in May. So that would have been a
Wow.
Copenhagen Flames era of team.
Yeah, yeah.
Who
We
was
went
on?
through a couple of those. Like I even like the first team of Copenhagen Flames I played on was like with a bunch of Danes where we weren't even like considered like a professional team because we were not high ranked enough to even like actually compete on like the highest level, right? We were the academy team at that time, I think, of Copenhagen Flames, to
Ah,
be honest.
okay.
Yeah, so that's
That's
how
a
it went.
that's strange back in the day, especially like academy teams. Like I guess Overwatch was especially kicking off in 2016, 2017. It was kind of like everybody was trying to play. And you being on an academy team is quite surprising. What rank were you back then? If you weren't considered like too high rank to play?
I actually guess I was kind of high rank because I have like a memory of like how my progress went from in Overwatch, and it was like the very first season when it was like not even the 4K or
Yeah.
3K. It was like 50, 70, whatever, I was like I finished the season like rank 50, which was the equivalent of like plat, low plat, I think, the very first season I played. And then in season two, I had like a vacation where I just like got to grind out the game for like 3 weeks straight. And I went from plat, I remember in season two, to like a finish on top 100, I believe. And I
Holy
was pretty
shit.
much a Genji OTP at that time. Yeah, and it was my first like FPS I played where I like actually hard committed to it in a way. So I guess I must have been like top 100 during that Copenhagen Flames um time. But like it was Genji one trick, and I don't think we all were like at that rank. And I could not play like the meta heroes at that level as well. So it wasn't really top 100 for real.
The OTP. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you top rank if you can only play one hero? I guess
Yeah, it
technically
doesn't
yes, but
correlate.
to play pro play, like probably not. Like a little
Nope.
rough when you need to play meta. Did you
Yeah.
start playing competitive games? Because obviously Denmark, Sweden, like all of the like Nordic countries as well. CS. All of them play
Yeah.
CS. Did you play any games competitively before Overwatch?
Not competitively. I was like pretty young. I think I was like 14, 15 when I like actually played Counter-Strike quite a lot, but I never managed to get like really, really good. Um, I think my peak was like Supreme, and
Okay,
then I
not
moved
bad.
over to like it was all right, right? But
Yeah.
like at that point, being global was not considered even something like special, I guess. maybe if you were young it was, but for me it was like kind of, I didn't feel like Supreme was anything special at that time. So Overwatch was really my first like actual game. I did play video games since like I was 5 years old, maybe maybe even 4 years old. I don't know, but yeah, it was like World of Warcraft when I was like 8, 9,
Nice.
10. So this doesn't really correlate into Overwatch later on, and League as well.
What was your earliest game that you can remember, like sitting down and playing?
Well, that must have been on console, like Mario Kart for sure.
Oh yeah, okay.
I played that a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Hell
That
yeah.
must have been like we even had like a thing where, so like I would always sit with my legs crossed on the table in front of the TV, and then for my birthday, I would like insist on every of the guests coming to one-on-one me in Mario Kart. So they would just like have to line up one by one, and I would have to play it out against them. And I was actually, when I think back onto it, I was quite competitive about it, to be honest. Like, yeah,
Maybe that clearly transferred onto like how you are now and how good you are now, obviously Overwatch, which is kind of insane. I think it's interesting because I think a lot of kids back then, at least, it's like consoles were the thing because they were way more accessible than like PCs back then. I feel like gaming PCs nowadays super accessible. Like it
yeah,
feels
for
like
sure.
everybody's got a PC. Even when they're like 12, 13, like they've got gaming rigs now that can play all the latest games and stuff. But that was way rarer back then, and it was a lot of
Way,
console
way,
players moving over to
for
PC
sure.
eventually.
And me and my brother was even really lucky because my dad has always been like ahead of times when it comes to technology, because it's also part of his work. So he always managed to get us like the best things, and he got laptop for us and PCs like when we were super young. So we have been like, we had access to a PC probably earlier than most people had at that time. Um, yeah, but I definitely agree. Like nowadays, like you're 8 years old and you get your first like PC that actually can play like at a decent
Yeah.
level. It's not like you don't have a chance, because if you sit on 50 FPS, it's impossible to reach like high rank for most people. So you don't get to try the full extent of the game until you like grow older and get like better equipment, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I remember my first PC. It was I had a laptop at one point because we didn't have
Hmm.
room for a PC, so I bought myself a laptop with money. And like obviously it wasn't very good, and I just played very basic games. But my first like tower, even that was like, I mean I'm a little bit older than you, but getting graphics card that was like 128 meg graphics card, like video memory. It was like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Like games weren't even running at 1080p. Some of them, it was like they were capped at like 960 or something, and like even that is like weird stretch. And like yeah, 720 was like a lot of the games that we played back then. And then now it's like it's pretty easy to pick up a computer that can run like Fortnite or like even Overwatch. Like Overwatch doesn't take that much realistically.
No.
Like you're not playing Battlefield or GTA. Like you can play a lot of competitive games on low settings, which most people do anyway. That's
Yeah, they even cater the games to actually fit pretty much every PC, like
yeah,
Counter-Strike. If you put that
exactly.
on low settings as well, you can easily play it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need multiple colors on a wall. Just one wall color, and you're fine. Like it just you might as well just be playing what CP Orange from like Team Fortress 2, where it's just like orange boxes everywhere. Like you can play on
Yes.
those graphics. It doesn't matter to be
Yeah, yeah,
competitive.
true.
So yeah, it's interesting to see the evolution of like players from like now to like how they're starting out versus like how you and myself kind of started out playing PC games. When you realized obviously you were quite good getting top 100 Genji OTP, like did you have like aspirations to become a pro player? Was that always something in the back of your mind, or was it kind of a fun thing to kind of begin with?
It was a fun thing for a long time, but I kind of like unknowingly got myself onto like a line that was like, I'm slowly becoming pro, because so like even from when I was like very early stages of the game, like when I was plat in season 2, I would make teams with my friends, and I would search up like on we have like a Facebook group with Overwatch Denmark, that's what it's called, and I would find like other Danes, and we would like scrim against other teams, even like plat teams. So I always really liked the team aspect of the game. Like even when I was like legendary Eagle Master, like a little bit lower
Oh
rank
yeah,
in CS:GO than Supreme, I would still play on a Counter Strike team with other Danes that I just like randomly found, right? Because for me it was more about like playing on a team and like trying to have like a larger goal than just for myself. Well, but then later on, I realized that the only way you can like actually get to like a higher level of the game is like developing yourself. Actually, I didn't realize that. That's just kind of what happened by playing. So then I was like, okay, I probably should find a new team because I'm like way ahead of the people I played with.
Yeah, you're like, wait, I'm the one carrying like every game.
Yeah. That even happened in ranked. If you like get a new game and you like play with the same people over and over and over, like then I had that one vacation where I would primarily play solo, and actually I think I just streamed as well, and then I like climbed so much because I was like really willing to put in more effort, I guess, than my friends because they just played for fun. I mean, I
Right,
did too.
right.
But
But you
yeah,
were just a little bit better. You play for fun, but you were
yeah,
just that fraction better. How did you get picked up
and
for
wanted to.
Academy, Copenhagen Flames Academy?
That's actually a good question. I think it's when something like we were on I was on like a very small Danish org. Just like I said, I just always played on teams, regardless of my level. And then got to know somebody, and then we had like this team, and then we got onto like Flames after because they have seen us play, I guess. I actually don't remember exactly how it went, but it must have been something like that. We were like known to an extent from playing in Denmark, and they wanted some Danish players that could go to the Danish lands. So
Yeah, what are the big Danish lands called? Because I've been to one before. I can't remember the names though.
Copenhagen Games, perhaps?
It wasn't Copenhagen Games. It was something else. And I went with the League of Legends team of all things, Magistra.
Oh,
Um,
oh my. Okay,
yeah,
Copenhagen
that's
Games.
a
There is also like
Danish one.
NPF is there as well.
Oh, it might have been MPF. Maybe,
Yeah, it's quite
yeah.
large.
I think it might have been that. Yeah, and because I went with a team, I was like working with at the time with League of all things because that's when I was casting League of Legends. Yeah,
Oh,
and I know a lot of the Danish players like kind of know each other because it's funny because I used to cast a guy called Grisson, like a support player in League of Legends, and his like best friend was Ding in Overwatch. And so like they kind of all knew each other, which was kind of strange. I was like, wow, like the Danish community, even in like Sweden and like they're very close knit, they're very small, and that
yeah,
definitely kind
very.
of helps. Obviously, like yourself, getting onto a Danish team like that, looking for Danish players, everybody kind of knows everybody, and then
Yeah,
you
exactly.
you moved on to like regular Copenhagen Flames, like the main roster. Like who originally did you move up with?
It was like they had like a main team that was like pretty good. I think it consisted of like someone like Balak, who is like a really old Danish player that was on Penta at once in Overwatch as well, right? Um, so when we moved to the main team, it was like I played on so many constellations of of Copenhagen Flames, so I
Yeah,
don't even like know where to begin. Like I think I played with like four different rosters on Copenhagen Flames in the span of like 3 years, back and forth. So it's kind of hard to ping pong all the names, but like there's a lot of OGs Danish players that I've been playing with, like Nerfed. You probably
oh, Nerfed,
recognize his
yep,
name as well.
casted Nerf before, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And actually had like a group of friends that was almost from the same area. Killix was one of them, and it was like Lin and his brother. They were like Danny and Lin.
Oh
It
yeah,
was like
okay.
two Danish brothers as well. That was like really good back then as well. Um, I didn't get to play with them on Copenhagen Flames, but yeah. But you're right. We did in Denmark. We always knew known who played like at the high level in Denmark, but we also and this is like a little bit of a different subject, but I think something I regret a little bit is that we had like a small organization that was called Survey. It's not small by any means. Actually, they have like hundreds of teams, and people actually goes to it like they would go to like football, practice
Right.
during the week. Their parents will drive the kids, and they will like practice esports. So
Wow.
like it's actually a massive org
What's
in
it
in
called,
that
sorry?
aspect of the game. Survey esports,
Derby Esports.
but
I feel like I've heard of that
yeah,
name
they had
before.
like yeah, they're in every game, but not at like the very highest level, but just at like organizational level. I don't know what you call it, but they had like 20 teams of Overwatch or something like that back in the days. Yeah, like they actually really made the Danish Overwatch community quite large, to be honest. And I think in hindsight, I kind of regret how we didn't manage to like create like a bigger like connection between like the best players in Denmark and then like the the regular players that wanted to like just enjoy the game or like start playing on a team at platinum level, you know. We were kind of like fully separate. And when I look at something like France, I feel like they have been much better at like actually connecting their entire community and holding onto it and like doing things for the community, like showing up to events and like actually being there for like just trying to keep the game alive basically. Like if you go to the Danish Facebook Overwatch group now, there's like a week in between every post, you know. It's like
Oh
incredibly
man.
dead. And there was a time where it was like actually like popping like by a lot. And we were kind of, to be honest, a lot of us like at higher up in the Danish of the players, we were kind of like, well, they just have like 20 teams in Serbia with like gold players, XD, you know? But like, holy smokes, we should really have appreciated how much energy there was for people and how like much love for the game there was. And how much Serbia also did to just like maintain that, grow it, you know? Bring in more players because they had the opportunity to play on teams, you know?
Yeah, I think those kind of grassroots groups, because we had that in the UK as well, like UK League of Legends at one point. It's
Mm.
kind of harder to do that nowadays. It feels. I don't know what the reason is, but yeah, I mean, making sure you can keep that like fundamental like grassroots level of play from like gold, plat, diamond players and just keep that flowing. I agree. I think France does a good job of that. Every time like the French like their crowds for even like League of Legends events, they're insane, and the amount of like activations they do with their teams and their players, like they really do put a lot into esports. Like
Yeah.
regardless of the game, it's really sick. It's really cool to see. I wish other countries would do that as well because I think Europe we're a bit underserved sometimes, especially in Overwatch, especially in during Overwatch League as well. Like, man, if there was just a bit of a push there, maybe from Blizzard, but also like from the different countries and communities, it would have been even bigger. And maybe that'll kind of happen now with Face It. I mean, there are a ton of like casual teams playing in Face It right now that are like plat and like gold and diamond and stuff. Do you think that will help revitalize like Danish Overwatch and like European Overwatch? What's your kind of thoughts on that?
I'm not really sure. Like it's kind of like I've thought many times since I felt that the Danish scene was kind of dead. Just to like illustrate what it felt like for a while. Now we had like a new generation of Danish players come in, and we have actually grown like the group of people that you know on the scene that are Danish, right? Like you have Johan on my team, Will, like a bunch of new people coming in, and you see them in Twitch chat as well everywhere. So there's like a bigger representation now. But like for literally 2 or 3 years, maybe even we were like a handful, like
Yeah.
maybe 10, 15 of the same people that knew each other incredibly well, but that was just who there was. It felt like, and you would just like every half a year see someone drop off one by one by one, you know, Fisher dropped off, you know, and like at the end it was just like, okay, how many are we left now? You know, Shax would also occasionally drop off, and you were just like, okay, now we are like 4 or 5 people left playing. I mean, we're still friends with the rest, but like where's the new people coming, or like where's the old one going? But back to your question, was like I have already felt that maybe like this Overwatch 2, the game becoming free to play, would revive Danish community
Hmm.
as an example, but it didn't really happen. So I'm also kind of like wondering if the new alternatives will revive it, and I'm not really sure what the solution is, to be honest, because I do feel like we are unserved, as you mentioned, the European scene, and maybe there's like a lot of things Blizzard could have done different. By of course there always is, and we could have done a lot more. But like I've tried to really think about like what I could have done, especially with like the Serbi, as I
Right.
mentioned before,
Yeah.
because I really think community does a lot, like how much you're willing to put into it. You know, when I think back to like how I got into Overwatch, first of all, was actually my friend from school mentioning that this new game is coming out and that I should get it. And I actually refused to get the game for like a bunch of time. I was like, no, 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 no. Counter-Strike is too good. I'm not gonna try that game. It looks so goofy, you know? And then they actually convinced me and I got to play the game, and boom, we were sitting there, a group of friends, and we all like were excited and having had a lot of fun together. But without them bringing me in, I probably might never have played the game. And I feel like it's the same for a lot of people, you know? It's your friends play a game, you will start to play the game,
Right.
and then slowly it will all gather up like that. But it's incredibly hard if there's like no fundamental to build that momentum. I think, so I'm not really sure, to be honest, how to get back at that. And maybe it's also nostalgic to an extent, where it's like, maybe it's just the memories that, what do you call it, that gives you a false sense of like what it used to be, I
Oh, like
guess.
rose tinted glasses kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or like grass was greener back then
Right.
type
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think, yeah, potentially though we're not even seeing that kind of side of the game because we're in like a different sphere to those kind of people. So being free to play, you'd expect a lot more players to come in, and I think with time, those kind of communities will grow up again or grow again. And, oh, it's a free game. We might as well play Overwatch today. We might as well play
Right.
Fortnite today. So maybe there is this community that's like slowly building like back up. And I'm hoping that, face it, OWCS, like that kind of stuff will help people like yourself from before, like get into competitive and like compete and then be really good at the game and kind of pop off from there. It feels like that will come with time, but it's hard to really gauge on how successful that's really going to be. Let's go back
Yeah.
quickly then to Copenhagen Flames and like early Contenders too, because 2018, 2019, that's when I cast Contenders, and that's when it was kind of the big like leading into Overwatch League. Of course, that was the first year Overwatch League started as well in 2018. Like going into Contenders that early on, there were a lot of Danes, a lot of Europeans. And with Overwatch League, was that always kind of in your sights? And like, how did you view OWL compared to Contenders? Was it still like a fun thing for you, or was like the end goal always going to be Overwatch League?
Mm, I mean, I competed since Overwatch League wasn't a thing. Like, I competed for a long time before Overwatch League was a
Right.
thing. So I never really had that in mind actually for a long, long time. I remember I played ESL weekly for like a year. No, I probably played for more than that. But you can go on my Liquidpedia and you'll see that I competed like in probably 100s of these weekly ones. And as I went through them, I got to like think of the competitive aspect a bit more than I was there to actually win, right? Um, so then I kind of like went on to. So then there was Open Division back then. It was like Open Division, and I think it was Trials,
Yeah,
and then
Trials, then
Contenders, and that was
Contenders. Yeah.
right, and that was all there was. There was no Overwatch League at that time, and I remember some random French guy wrote to me like, "Do you want to try out for our team?" And I was like, "Sure, let's give it a go." I was always really open-minded about like trying to play with new players. Like I loved that, and I went in. I was like by far the best players I played with ever at that
Wow.
time.
Okay.
And yeah, it was early Constellation of Piece of Cake, if that rings a bell.
Yes,
It
piece of
was like,
cake.
yeah, it was like me, Poppy Fresh, Dritro, Chops, a pro StarCraft player, Marine Lord,
Oh, Marine
and
Lord.
it was,
Yes.
yeah, and they brought me in because Chops, the French main tank, he had seen a clip of mine on YouTube, so he wrote to me because he actually was kind of comedian because comic.
Is a comic or
What do
like
you call it?
a comedian, like
It was
funny guy?
Yeah, no, it was fun because my entire YouTube video was me just like going crazy with Genji blades. And
Yeah.
this guy was like, "Whoa, he's so good at Genji. He's so good at blading." And he invited me in, and I was terrible with Genji blades. It was
Oh no.
crazy. But the meta happened to be like Tracer Soldier, and for some reason my soldier was really, really good at that time, and we'd like beat so many teams that I had been watching for like half a year. And they invited me onto the team, and that's how Piece of Cake, my first like actually like really competitive team that I went on, came to be. And we played Open Division, and I think we were the only team that season out of like 500. There was like a lot of teams back then, 500 teams. We went 10-0 as the only team, and we beat like really good teams at that time. It was like teams that had like Shacks, and I'm not entirely sure about Kevstar or not, but there was like really good teams. Eps, there are so many old names in
Oh,
that
Eps.
game.
Yeah.
And then
Wow. That's throwback.
yeah, and then actually with Piece of Cake, Copenhagen Flames that I worked with previously picked us up, and I got to play my first contender season under Copenhagen Flames. I'm pretty sure, and that was like my entrance to like this is more than just like a hobby now.
Right.
I'm playing at like I wasn't great, but like I was playing at the highest level you could at that time,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Season
I guess
zero. That
NA
would
was
be
more developed.
for
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
audience. Yeah. Audience at home. Season zero was 2017. I can imagine there's a few new viewers, maybe OWCS viewers that have not seen like old school Overwatch esports, but it was like Apex in Korea. and then EU NA had Contenders. Season 0 was 2017, and then Overwatch League started in 2018, and that's when Contender Season 1 was, and then 2. So when you went into Contender Season 0, like transitioning from like 0 to year 1, did you actually have any tryouts with Overwatch League teams at that time? Because if you're winning all these games, you're thinking maybe, there would have been some tryouts potentially for some outings.
Mm, I remember like in the very beginning, I was like a little bit young and not very good. So I think
Right.
for the like very first season of Overwatch League, I didn't have anything. But then I think it went kind of progressively where the second season, actually, I'm really bad at like what season is what in Overwatch League. So
Yeah,
I'll
that's
just like
fair.
go as my perception of season 1 and 2 and 3. But basically, first one didn't have any options, but I didn't really expect it as well. So I wasn't really I didn't feel down at all about it. Then season 2, I remember I was like substitute on Team Denmark, um, and they did really, really well. And just because I was on the bench, I actually got like a tryout in Overwatch League, but
Oh
like it was
shit.
like a really big one. There was a lot of people there, and I got like cut in the very first phase.
Oh,
So
tragic. Do you remember what team that was?
yeah, mm, I would like to say Boston,
Okay.
if I'm not fully mistaken. I think it was Boston, and I think it was like 80 players or something like that. And then it was like they did phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Right.
I got cut
No.
in the phase 1 or 4 or whatever you would like to call it. And then the next one I had uh, two. I had Boston again the next
Oh,
the
nice.
next year,
Okay.
and I got to the phase 2 this
Oh,
time.
hell yeah. That's
So
improvement.
1 year of progress. Yeah, there was improvement, and I had one other tryout as well that I don't remember exactly how it went, but like I didn't go far enough to where it was like interesting. I only really tried once preseason to be in a position where it was like really, really fun, and that was the one where I got into Overwatch League. Um, it just like that was the season where I had like by far the most offers. I had like 5 tryouts if I remember correctly,
Damn. That's for
and I got
2020,
in.
I assume.
It was 2020.
Right.
So like first one nothing, second one one, and then it progressed like that every year. So there was improvement every year, as you said, which was the
Oh,
biggest
hell yeah.
thing. Yeah,
What teams were
and
the offers coming from for 2020?
well, direct offers are just like the
Well,
tryouts,
tryouts and offers. Like we'll do it that way.
right? So and I'm scared that I'm saying wrong names now, but I had Boston tryout. This like once again was like open, more open than other
Yeah. I
ones,
do
and then
remember
I
them
had
running a lot of those.
Yeah, then Titans and Paris, London, and there's one more, and I'm a little bit scared if I'm not right about that one. Maybe Valiant,
Okay.
if I'm not. Yeah, and I got into like I remember I completely threw my London tryout, and I was so sad about it because I spoke to them, and I think from what I remember, they were kind of like having high hopes on me as well, and I had high hopes on myself. Just so everyone who's watching this is aware, me and not X Oblivion, sorry, Obey Alliance had just won Contenders actually. It was my
Right.
first winning in Contenders, and we beat British Hurricane, the Academy of London, and we did it in a pretty uh, great way. Let me put it like that. And I looked very good, and we just like played super well as a team. So there was a lot of eyes on us at that time. It was like if you won Contenders, that was the best thing you could do, so obviously you were gonna have like a lot of eyes on you, and like you were the next up for Overwatch League basically. So that's also like Khan was on my team on the Bay Alliance, and he also managed to get like a lot of tryouts. And later we would end up on the team together. But like back to like the teams, completely whiffed on London, and I was sad about it. They had high hopes, and so did I. And then Paris, obviously I made it into the final phase, and the same for Valiant. I was no, not Valiant. Sorry, Titans. I was in the final phase
Oh,
as
right.
well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't remember how it went for Valiant. But then I remember Paris wanted me like pretty early in the process. Like we got to the final phase and they were just like, "You're the one we want." And for Valiant, it was a bit different, where they had like 2 flex DPS they actually wanted more than me. One of them was agilities at that time,
Yeah.
and they were just kind of put me on hold and said like, we might be interested, but for now we're not." Oh, that was Titans. I'm not sure if I keep saying Valiant instead, but anyways, that was Titans. And so I was super excited. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna take Paris. We're gonna play Overwatch League for the first time. I've been watching that for years. This is the time. And I also felt like I was in good shape because that also mattered a lot to me. I never wanted to just be in Overwatch League. I wanted to actually like feel confident when I went
Of
there.
course, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you saw a lot of players that was like maybe they came in as like the rookie season, and you were just like, oh, that cannot be what they hope for.
Hmm.
Because you don't get that many changes. And I can also get back to that later on. But in Overwatch League, you do really, really need to get the best out of the time you have there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially with how little games you're playing. Like, I feel like Contenders, you were playing more games. I can't remember exactly, but it did feel that way where Contenders teams were just playing more at that
yeah,
time. So, yeah, I'd agree. I think a lot of players probably felt the same way as you, where it's like, I need to make the most of every single time I'm loading into the server. I need to make the most of
yeah,
this opportunity. How was it first kind of like going on to Paris Eternal back then, who was previously Vegas Eternal? If people don't know either, Vegas Eternal was Paris Eternal before that. What was the
right,
first kind
right.
of like introduction to the team, and like how did that initially ended up going?
So, so people have some insight to like the trial selection. It was kind of like this is something I actually think Avella was pretty good at. She have gotten a lot of blame or critic in the past few years, and I just want to highlight something I felt she was pretty good at. And when she built the team, she was really good at getting our opinions on each other. So essentially, it was like a democratic selection of the team
Oh right,
because
okay,
you would only get onto the team if the other players they were interested in would also like you, and the reverse, right? Which meant that when we actually got together as a team, everyone wanted to play together because they had already said like, yeah, I would like to play with that guy, or. So that was really good. But when we went on to Paris, it was like very two sorted because first of all, we were a budget team. There's no like, I don't think that's really a secret at all. We were predicted to be like maybe the worst team, if not the second worst team in the league. And we weren't getting paid a lot. Um, but then on the other hand, it was like we also knew as players that just because we're a budget team and it's like our rookie season, if we completely go last or second last, we're not gonna get the opportunity to play again. So
right.
yeah, we're underdogs, but there was a lot of pressure on us, and it also caused a lot of heat in the team, to be honest, because we were just like a inexperienced. Well, I played for a long time at that point, but not at that level. So we were inexperienced and young, most of us, and we just kind of had that thing in the back of the head every time that we had to fucking win some games, otherwise we're gonna get cut. So it also caused us to be very outspoken when we saw things go wrong, and that's very good as well. But it also very caused a lot of like really heated discussions and fights.
Right, because that was with a lot of that was the mixed team with Sparkle and Hanbin
Yeah, I was
originally.
not on that team.
Oh no,
Do you
that
mean?
was that
Yeah, I came into
later.
the season after.
Oh,
Yeah, I came in
2021.
with.
Sorry. Yeah, you were in
Yeah, yeah,
2021,
yeah.
the 2020 season. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there was actually. It's funny you mentioned that because we actually got so much hate coming into that team because they pretty much cut like
Right.
we came in right after they cut like really good Korean players and like their highest reputed uh, French players as well, like Ben, FD. I don't remember if they had
Yeah, it
like
was like
Nico as
Nico,
well.
Soon, Ben Best, FD God, Hip was on there as well, although he
Yeah.
left like early 2020. Yeah. And then
So they go
2021,
from like
right.
having a really good team that like especially the French were really excited about, and then
Yeah.
we just come in from the right and they're like, who are these people? Like there's one French guy and who are the rest? And I remember we got so much hate for that in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was piled on top of the other things, right?
On top of all that stress is kind of
Right.
intense, like especially how passionate the French fans are as well. Like getting cut for those kind of players is a little bit rough. Like, yeah,
It is
especially for them.
rough. Very.
How did you kind of deal with
Um
that when you were on the team?
I mean, it was nothing we could do anything about, and then I don't really let it uh impact me that much. Like if I can do absolutely nothing, I don't really care that much. I mean, obviously it was just annoying in the beginning, but like
Right.
eventually it just kind of like drained out. They cannot. tweet every day about us being not French and not being Sparkle and Hanbin and whoever else was
Yeah.
there.
Which is
You know,
insane
they
to
had
think
to
about,
like,
by the way. Back from like Han Bin on that team and like on Paris Eternal,
yeah,
it was a very strange roster, and it was basically French Korean.
right.
It was wild, and then yeah, like you said, you got kind of swapped around. Yeah, and I think that's one of the main thing. I think a lot of older players now kind of realize, like, not looking at comments online, Twitter, Reddit, etc. Like, yeah, did you ever feel like it would get to you, or have you always been someone that's like, I'm just going to ignore all that stuff and just play my own way?
It never really got to me, to be honest. Like, the only thing that can actually really get to me is like if people I respect, players that I respect, if they're making comments,
Right.
but this will usually happen like in very close groups, and then you sometimes hear about it, whatever, you know, so it doesn't really get to you that much as well. But like from complete strangers on Twitter and things like that, not really. Like I did have some kind of crazy scenarios where like I remember we lost a game, we got reverse swept, I think, with Paris, and I just had someone like in my DM saying like kill yourself and these kind of things. And I remember I sent it to Avella and she just immediately tweeted it. I was like, okay, well that was not exactly what I was like hoping or like wanting to, you know, like I just wanted to like, you know, ignore the guy, but um nah, it didn't really get to me. I just thought it was like mind blowing how invested people was in our games when I saw
Right.
someone becoming that upset about us losing, you know? Because come on, we were not expected to win. But how much money did you put on us? Why?
Yeah,
You
right. How
know,
much money was there?
if you get 5 times your money back in putting investing or oddsing on us, maybe it's because we are unlikely to win. You know,
Oh my
I
god.
definitely feel like he put money on us to be that upset. But
Probably, yeah.
I don't
There,
know.
there is crazy
Yeah,
sports fans, esports fans, like just everywhere. It's yeah. I don't think you'll ever escape them. And when you're kind of put into that spotlight, especially Overwatch League as well, like people, maybe they do have money, maybe they don't, but they put a lot of expectation on the team, regardless of like the power
they do.
level, like coming into the league. How did your
Yeah.
time on Paris Eternal, especially with the players that you were surrounded with, like how was it initially? Because Overwatch League's kind of a big leap, and you said you were kind of inexperienced. Like how quickly did you warm up to the league, as it were, or like how did you and your team kind of evolve going throughout the year?
Um, so I think all in all, like when I look back at that season, by the way, just so people know, it was like during Corona. So we were
Yeah,
us and London was we were the one competing in NA, but we were just like sitting in our homes. So my experience was a banner in my room and then just sitting in my room at like 11 p.m. on 180 ping, basically. That was our matches. Um, and in the beginning, even though I was very confident from winning contenders, I realized that this was like really beyond my level. Maybe like when we played against like the best teams. So I also got like a lot of feedback from the team. You know, like when I did bad things, and I felt like, especially after Neptuno and Elivote got replaced by Dridro and Vestola, I became kind of like the next part of the team that really had to step it up for us to get somewhere, basically. So I was under a lot of pressure for like 2 or 3 months, and I really had to grind to stay in the game and also stay to feel that I contributed to this team and could help us get somewhere where we would get something meaningful out of the season and not just go like 2 wins and 14 losers or whatever. So I was under a lot of emotional and stress in general, but I did manage to get to a point where I remember specifically I played like really well against Justice, and it was one of our first like really big upsets against a bigger team. It was like Fury and like Assassin, a bunch of like pretty good Korean players, and we won. And I got like MVP, and I played like really well.
I
And I
think I
remember,
remember that game because you played Farah in
yeah,
that game, right?
Para and also Echo, mostly Echo
Yes,
actually.
right.
Yeah, and I remember JMac after the match, like JMac had been on my neck for a few months, like you need to do that better, need to do that better. That was trash. That was also trash.
Right.
You know, I was just like every scrim was like a match for me at that time. Like imagine you go into the scrim and you're just like playing against like the best players in the world. You go log into a scrim against Dallas Fuel or something, and they're insane, and you're just there like feeling pressure the entire time that you cannot fuck up. That was just like every day for like 6 hours for me for 3 months at that point. And then you also have like 2 hours where you like when you fucked up during the 6 hours, you will go back and everyone will be like, dude, he fucked up again, But it all turned then after that grind I had where I really like focused for a few months and really put in everything I could. And I remember J-Mac after the game, the first thing he said, it was translated by Vala because he could not speak the best English at that time. He was like, huge shout out to you. You really, really like put in a lot of effort, and we have all seen it, and we can really tell that it paid off. He just like really thanked me for the effort that I put in, and now that it managed to gain us a victory against like one of the best teams. It was one we considered one of the best teams at that time. It would then later turn out that they weren't that great, right? But we were still not supposed to win against them regardless of
Right, yeah.
anything. Yeah, and then from there we managed to upset Glads as well, from 0-2 to 3-2, and I don't know if I got MVP that game. And we also upset Dallas Fuel as well. We had all in all that season was incredible for a bunch of rookies that sat at home on 180 ping. Like I'm unsure if it could have gotten much better. Besides that, we lost like a few really important games, 2-3, but we still managed to take away a lot more than we could have and should have maybe. But
Yeah, a success in that book then. In that regard, like that's
yeah,
a
for
big
sure.
success for the team, especially rookies against some of the best, like some of the Korean players at that time. Like, yeah, Fury, the team wasn't that good. Like, it was okay. It was very middle of the pack, but still a very strong team full of strong players. Was there anybody you were kind
Yep.
of super scared playing, or maybe even you can answer this afterwards? Is there any players you kind of look up to that you faced in a server in Overwatch League?
Ooh, the list goes on for a while, maybe. No, but I played against Kevstar for since my first season of Contenders, and just so people know, he wasn't considered as good back then as he is now. So watching him develop that much and ahead of me was, I mean, he was better than me at that time as well, but watching him develop that much was incredible, and I've always thought that he was like really good and looked up to him for being. Probably the thing that I admired most about him is how mm, you can tell that he is very smart, but he doesn't talk a lot. I don't know how to say it. Like, I think a lot of it goes on in there.
Yeah.
And then he's also extremely flexible, like extremely flexible above anyone else I've seen. It's like you wouldn't care if you put him on. I remember recently we saw him on like Sojin in a match, and he was going crazy. In a really important match, he just like was on Sojin for a map specific pick, and he just went crazy. So I really admire him and look up to him. But then also throughout playing in Overwatch League, there was a lot of players that I just like got to know, like Yaki. I would talk to him every time we scrimmed, and he was incredibly good. And they were having such a bad season, but like I could
Yes.
tell that this guy was so good. Like he was so good, and I felt so bad for him. And he just wrote like, "Oh my god, you guys are so good," because we just like rolled them in scrims, and I was just like, "Bro, this guy, he's so good," and he just like they also got shit on social medias and things like that.
Yes, that team did. Yeah, I think Avast was the only one that was standing up for Yaki at that point. I think he was still
Yeah,
my
and he was
goat, and it was
yeah,
rough. It was a rough team to watch actually, because Yaki everybody
yep.
thought maybe one of the best to ever do it. Like, and he was just
And he
getting
truly
stomped.
was like he he was incredibly good for a long time and very consistent. Um, and then later on, I would add Proper to that list as well.
Okay.
Like I only got 2 matches in my second season with Vegas Eternal. Um, but like we played against scrims against this guy, and I could just tell that this guy was gonna destroy the scene.
Yeah.
Just like everyone predicted. So I would add him as well to the list. I didn't get to play that much against him outside of that, and I haven't since. And I didn't watch that many of their games recently. But like that one scrim I had against him, where just like I remember it was like meta was Tracer and I don't know about the second pick, like maybe Echo or Ash or something. And this guy was just on Genji for some reason. And we were like, okay, that's weird. Why is he on Genji? And he just like completely destroyed us. It was not like I don't know how to put it into um so that people can understand what it means when I say that. But basically, it was like we could not get a proper fight because the guy would just like one tap one of us before anything happened. You know, like the max range dash into like combo, dropping behind one of us, and like before we can even realize what was going on, one of us was dead, and like he was so good, and I heard he was good, and I was like, yeah, this guy is gonna be good at Tracer. And then I play against him, and he's on Genji, and he's just destroying me, and I'm like, okay, so he's good at Genji and Tracer. What else? You know, where do we go from here? So I think those three, if I had to like say some names, but I'm known and seen and played against and with so many players at this point that the list just goes on forever of like people that I respect and admire and that has been good at the game.
Yeah, I
Pretty
mean, I'm
much.
not like Proper is just a different breed of human being. Like
Yeah.
he is one of the like next generation, I think, of like god tier players. You had the Apex players that were like god tier, Jaehong, etc. Right, Jonak, and now it's like the Propers of the world that are like coming
Yeah.
in. It's going to be good for quite a while, I'd imagine. I'm not sure he's going to drop off the face of the earth anytime soon. Is there any kind of player you look back on, especially in your early career, that you looked up to?
Mm. I mean, if I dial all the way back, I think it was even before Devon got like really famous, but back then I looked up to him because he was so I got to scrim against him a bunch before he got on Selfless, I think, actually.
Right.
And he not a bunch, we got like maybe one or two scrims, you know. We weren't good enough to actually scrim the teams he was playing with, but I got to play against him, and he was always like really high on ladder. And there was this idea, I don't know if you follow me, Josh, but like nowadays if you see a smurf in rank that is destroying the lobby, you have like 2 or 3 names in your head that you're like, okay, it's probably one of them on
Yeah.
Smurf or something. And that's how it was with Defrin back then. It was like, okay,
Right.
this guy is top 5 on Tracer. Guess who it is, you know?
It's
Like, it's
probably
most
Defran.
likely, yeah, you know, boosting or anything. I don't know what he was doing. But I looked up to him a lot because he was incredibly good at that time. Like, really good.
That's yeah, it's funny because when I was playing in EU, if I was playing like, so I was like, I think my peak in EU, that's when the old SR system was like 4.3 or something. I think it was
Mhm.
4.37 or something. I was like one game away from like 4.4. That was in goats though. But whenever I saw like an unknown name, maybe I was like 4K. I think I averaged about 4K, 4.1. And I would see an unknown name and they just destroy the lobby. I'm like, that's probably Kevster. I just assumed it
Right.
was him or like Kai or someone
Yeah.
like that. Some sick hit
Yeah.
scan player that's like, what the fuck? Your account is level like 26 and you're like destroy. Okay, buddy, like come on now. We know something's
Yeah.
up with this. Like the old border portraits, and they're always like the really low ranks without any stars and stuff. Like
Exactly. The bronze one.
yeah, the
Yeah.
bronze one exactly. I do kind of miss that, by the way, when you load into a game and it was a little bronze thing, and you're like, they're probably pretty fucking
Yeah.
good. They're either cheating or they're really good, and they're a smurf of somebody's. Like you can't really tell nowadays because it's just a name, which kind of
You're right.
sucks.
There was a lot. Like if you saw someone really low level and they were like top 100 or something, you just knew it had to be someone that was like
Someone that's like
pretty good.
sick. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dude, man, this giving me flashbacks, but like that was really cool about the game back then, I think. Was that like
Yeah.
level border and then the like top 500 logo, and it's like holy shit, or like you'd see
Yeah.
like someone that's platinum border or something and they're also top 500, like they grinded the game on that account.
Yeah.
I thought that was sick. We got the levels now, the profile levels, but like it's not like
But you have to
in
check it and
game.
things
Yeah,
like
you have
that.
to check it. It's
Yeah.
like I don't care that much.
Who does that?
Yeah, I know,
It's like
yeah.
the last thing I think I look at when I open someone's profile is like the level.
Yeah,
Does it even
exactly.
increase when you play?
It does because it
I don't.
it
Oh,
increases.
okay.
Well, it does, but it's like not as you play. It's like as you level up your heroes. So it's like, oh, if you land more
Oh,
Arnonades,
okay.
it levels up that, and so that's a level that it kind of goes up like that. I know Cloudy is
Like the.
like something stupid level, but it's all on Rhine. So it's like he's like level 50
Okay.
fucking million on Rhine or whatever, and yeah, his other heroes probably need some work, I think. But
I'm not gonna lie, there has been a few recent features like that I don't even care enough about to understand because it's like, why? You know? I don't
yeah,
know.
I think everybody was kind of annoyed that they took away the levels. But although I will say in their defense, I do like this system, and I think it's not there for us. Like it's there for more like casual
Yeah, yeah.
players. I think, especially with. Although it's cool to see like, oh, my Arnonades are really good. Like I hit lots of Arnonades, or like I hit sleeps and stuff.
Right. Okay.
It's
That
kind of
could
cool
make
for
sense. Yeah.
stats. But yeah, I do miss the old like profile borders and the
Yeah.
names and the numbers, and yeah, it looks sick back then. So yeah, Defran, obviously on Selfless,
Yes.
like way back when, that's someone you kind of looked up to. And did you watch much Apex back then in Korea?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all, to be honest. I watched it in hindsight, like maybe 2 or
Right.
3 years ago, I would watch the old matches. Um, and it annoys me, but like we spoke about Proper before, right?
Yeah.
And like how he's insane. And the problem I have is that when I go back and watch like really old matches, is that I think they all suck.
Yeah.
Like you watch say Obi and they're like hyping up like crazy back then, and it's just like I feel that s- pretty much everyone who plays pro Tracer nowadays is better than he was at that time, and it makes sense because like it just evolves so much the game over time. The general level you play on as well. Like if you smurfed 3 or 4 years ago in plat, you could you could notice like how much worse they were, and it's still the same now, but like the base level is way different.
It's much higher.
Uh, it's much higher, right? It just in like across the board, and also at the very extremes at the top and the bottom. But yeah, that's the thing I feel when I watch Apex is like,
Yeah, it really is just kind of bad play compared to now. Before, obviously,
yeah,
it was like, oh my god, this is like the most ridiculous plays we've ever seen. Like, dude, people were hyping up Johnny for a while, like, hey, Johnny, like, he's hitting cool shadows and stuff. Hey, buddy, he's like diamond now. So, yeah,
yeah,
the level of play across the board, and it's only going to increase as well, which is the exciting thing. Is like the game kind of evolves more, and man, if you dropped Proper back then, you'd assume he's like cheating, or you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that's
No,
the
for sure,
funniest
it
thing,
wouldn't even be close. Like he would have been miles better than anyone on his role if you
right?
just dropped him back at that time.
Even a
It's like
couple of
crazy
years
to
ago,
think
even
about.
at the start of the Overwatch League,
Yep,
people
yep,
you
yep,
drop him
for
in,
sure.
it's just like, wow, this guy is the second coming of Jesus. Like this
Yeah,
guy.
he would have really taken over the entire thing, not gonna lie. Like, it's actually crazy how much things change. I don't know if you remember that Volskaya clip of the Tracer. Was it Carpet that, like, completely,
Oh, he killed
like,
6.
kills everyone?
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that. I remember thinking in my like, I watched it live, and I remember thinking, "Wow, that's crazy." And then I rewatched it, like, a year ago, and I was like, "This is what we all, like,
yeah.
hyped up,"
This is what we were
Like,
doing back then. Yeah,
what the hell? This guy is just like running in a straight line, and this guy is standing still, and like, you know, and this guy he only like last hits the person. But it looks good in the kill feed, I guess. But yeah,
man,
but I
it's funny
mean,
to watch clips
if I'm
from back then.
it, it really is, yeah.
I think with Overwatch League obviously departing now, and we've moved on to OWCS, it's going to be fun to see newer players like step in that have only played Overwatch 2, and they're going to become pros, and they're going to become maybe some of the best in the world, and that's pretty
Yep.
a little bit terrifying, I'd say, for a lot of players, a lot of old heads maybe. Um, let's speak about more about the Overwatch League then, because how did you find your time? Obviously on Paris Eternal slash Vegas Eternal, I guess. Like, how did you find your time in going into like a COVID situation too? Like, the morale, I would imagine, wasn't the greatest. I didn't think it was for anybody, to be fair, being stuck at home. But like, how did your team ending up dealing with it?
We're all kind of like in the same boat, and we somehow managed to like really become a team despite not being physically together. Like, I think we were also pretty good at like sitting after scrims
Right.
and before scrims and just like hanging out with each other. And I think that's like one of the biggest secrets in esports to like getting good results is like how connected you are to your team. Uh, and when you're forced physically to be together, it will kind of naturally happens, or it will kind of like really have the opposite effect because you group the team and you create the distance in that regard. But yeah, we did dealt with it pretty well, I would say. Actually, I know on London they thought it was absolutely terrible, but I didn't have this exact same experience. I I felt that mm, I would have loved to be playing physically with them that season, but I still think there was some benefits. There was pros and cons to being home. I think
For
it
sure.
was probably easier entry level for us to go to Owl and sit at our home where we had just one contenders as an example from the same spot. Not much has changed. We just were having ping disadvantages, but that was about it. It was also easier to maybe not being overly nervous when playing against the best teams, because it was just like, oh, it's just like every other day we're just playing from home, where I think that's what we got on the second season, right? I don't know if you remember exactly, but basically what happened is that I played the first season and we go 8-8, which was like
Yeah.
beyond expectations, and Paris Eternal is gonna relocate to Vegas, right? And we're gonna follow most of the team, and we're gonna get like uh, Korean staff. Mubugi and Jamek moves up to head
Yes.
coach,
Right.
and then we have a Vela, and then we're gonna have Glister coming in to fill out the spot of Onigard, basically, and then the rest of us continues. And we had to physically relocate there, and there's so many things to talk about, like, because that season went completely wrong. If you guys watched that season, it was like I got to play 2 matches before I got kicked. Then the rest of the guys played another 8. I think they lost every single one of them, and
Yeah.
then they got kicked. And then an NA team came in to take over, and they also lost everything. I think
Yeah.
that's
That
how the
was
season went.
the transition to Rack Attack. That
Yeah,
squad.
exactly.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
a crazy team, and that was very unprecedented too, where like the entire team pretty much disappears, and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, replacement, and it's like, okay, so how is this team going to do? I remember that
Yeah.
specifically with Glister too, because I think a lot of people at the time were kind of saying like, man, because Glister was supposed to be like like Sparkle's younger brother almost. Like it was always him and Sparkle kind of clashing in Korean contenders on Element Mystic and Gen G.
Right.
And then everybody was like, Glister. And I was like, Glister's a freak, man. He's so sick. He's really good at the game. And then he comes in. It's like, wow, he's super underperforming kind of everybody's expectations. What was it like actually working with the Korean staff and Glister? Because you mentioned before, JMac, not fantastic in English. So Avala was there to be the translator and the intermediary. Like, how was it working with a Korean staff with a mostly Western team?
Oh, there's so much. Where do I begin? So, like, the first thing I will say is that the first season we played, I felt that. So, like, we had Get Amaze who was like the guy pulling us together, making us a team, and then we had JMac, who was the brain behind the gameplay, but not so much that we were. I would say that the staff wasn't the one controlling everything in the first season. It was players driven a lot. I think 80% of the feedback I got was from my teammates, and 80% of the feedback we did, like, to macro, like how we should play as a team, was also from players. It was like players figuring out how we want to play, and then getting input from the coaches as well, and them helping us making decisions if we were disagreeing with each other, basically. And I think the reason why we did so well in the first season was because we were not the best players, but we were definitely underrated. Like, someone like Khan was absolutely crazy, and people didn't think much of him, to be honest, for a long time. And same applies to some of the like the rest of us as well, right? And then we go into the second season, and there's suddenly like very high expectations of us. That's the first thing. Like, this time, it wouldn't be acceptable if we went 8-8. I think even that would be like the baseline of, like, this is where we should be. You guys can go 50% win rate, and that's like acceptable. And then the second thing is going with like full Korean staff, and then having Glister come in kind of made us. I think Glister was a fantastic player. Like,
Right.
that's not at all. Like, I don't think anyone would disagree with me on that. But what kind of happened is that we were not really a team anymore. That made us like pretty good in the first season, because in the first season, even though we were doing dumb things, we were 100% committed to it together. And we were also like, often we were like, here, we're probably not going to be winning, playing the traditional way. So we're going to do something crazy. And, it would be like Khan flanking like an absolutely monster, or Dan trying to make like some crazy shadow outplay, or me just like playing comfort heroes, like, okay, we're in against Glads on map 5. Fuck it, I'm going Pharah, like, there was so many things like that. But in the second season, it was just like, it was like we gave up the responsibility as players, and we like pushed it onto like our staff, and they also wanted to control more things, so we were just like listening. And then having Glister there, which was just like, uh, we respected him as like a better player, so we didn't want to enforce some of our kind of like ideas and things like that onto him. So we just became like much. I would say, a much more uninspiring team to watch, and
Right.
it's much easier to play against a team that doesn't surprise you, especially if they're just simply not that much better than you. Like sometimes you can make up for that by playing like tight together as a team and making surprising plays. Then you can make up for like maybe in certain metas not having the best tracer or whatever, you know. But we lost that part of the game, and then also I think specifically for me as well, my mechanic level dropped a bunch because between season 1 and 2 of the, I'm just saying 1 and 2 because I played one and then the second one,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was season 1 I played was Overwatch, just regular Overwatch, and then it was Overwatch 2 in the second one. But the
Yes.
problem was I could not play ranked in Overwatch 2.
Yeah, it was rough.
Like it didn't exist. I couldn't practice the game, and I was told to like just grind out ranked in Overwatch. But then I would like load into the lobby, and it was like goats, or it was like so many tank heroes. And in Overwatch 2, when we scrimmed, that was never the case. I would like basically a tracer OTP, and the movement speed in Overwatch 2 was faster. Everything was so different that I had no idea how to like grind out tracer or other DPSs in the sense that it would be used in Overwatch 2. So like I was just like for months I was just like I can see that I'm worse tracer than all these other Overwatch 2 tracers there are, right? I was playing against like insane players on tracer, and I was never like really good tracer, but I didn't know how to catch up basically. And then on top of us not playing well as a team, it kind of just like I became the scapegoat, and maybe rightfully so. Like I never really like I would have loved to have more than 2 games. Let me just say that. I think if anything, maybe with like the circumstances there was traveling and then like not having a game to play, maybe if I had like maybe 1 or 2 months more, I could have like came to like something that would have been doable for the rest of the season, you know, becoming good enough to like pull off good results again. But I didn't get that kind of like opportunity to catch up on a new game and
Yeah.
on heroes that I wasn't great at. Because all my best heroes was not good in Overwatch 2 for a long time. Like Mei, Echo, Pharah was just never played in Overwatch 2. So
It was such a weird transition period for like a lot of pros. And I think that was it sucks that it had to kind of happen that way. Like, well, here's Overwatch 2. We can play alpha and the
yeah,
beta and you can scrim sometimes like but there's no ranked. And I remember specifically, I think I talked to who did I talk to about this? But in the Overwatch League Discord, I remember Hardy specifically, like, hey, hop on quick play, like hop on
yeah,
OPR
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever, and he made that meme, that GIF. And that from that time, like that's the only thing people could really do. And then it's like if no one else is playing it, like what's the point in you playing it? But that's the problem because you're not playing it, then therefore everybody else is not playing it, and no one could really get like proper games in the end, which really sucked, and I think it hampered a lot of the skill as well going
yeah.
into
It
that
did for
season.
sure.
Because if
I
Overwatch 2
mean,
was
at least
out, everybody would be
personally
playing
for
it.
me, yeah, exactly. And just so people know as well that it was like pro players and the developers that had access to the game.
Right, I remember
So
that.
so like every lobby was like 4 pros or something, and just like the rest of them was like plat or bronze players
Yeah, yeah. I thought
testing
I was
out
the
like
sickest
the
tracer of
weirdest.
all time, by the way, and I thought I was the sickest Social of all time. Me and Scott would jump in and we play it, and we're like, okay, so what pro players on the other team? Okay, so there's half of San Francisco Shock. We lose, but it's okay. Maybe we win. Maybe we have pro players too. Like that was it was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
gamble because there wasn't anybody playing because no one had access really, and
yeah. It was weird.
it was a very strange
It was
time.
weird.
Do you think
And most people was also just testing random things as well. You
right?
know, like
Because everything's so
it
different.
wasn't meta.
It was
Yeah.
ridiculous, and like you said, playing Overwatch 1 at that time, it was like, well, we just play goats. Like, we just play 3 tanks. Like, we just play 3 supports.
Yep.
Like, and then also you're trying to play Tracer and you're not moving as quick. And you're also
Yeah.
having to fight another tank on a flank, which just won't happen a lot of the time in Overwatch 2. You're like normally just dueling with the enemy Tracer, maybe a Genji or something, another DPS. You're not having a diva looking at you while Winston jumps to a backline. Like,
No, no, no.
it was
Yeah.
so strange. So yeah, I'm not like too shocked to kind of hear how it was difficult to practice and the skill across the board, not even just yourself. I think got hurt slightly in that transition
Yeah.
period. What how did you really feel at the very end of your tenure on Vegas Eternal? Was it something you kind of knew that was coming, or did you get blindsided in any way?
Oh, I'm not really sure. I think I felt a little bit relieved, to be honest. Partly relieved because it was obviously not working with the team. So like we all knew that either we needed more time or we needed to like drastically change our mindset or like help each other more and like get back to like the way we had things. Like the system had to be the same as the season before, or we had to change something drastically. And I didn't really see that happening. And I wasn't the only one that got blamed, but like it was kind of like the first season as well, where it was like I knew that I had things that I really had to work on as well in Overwatch 2 and that season. So like when I got like pushed out, it was like okay, now I can breathe a little bit, you know.
Right.
Uh, because it was very very stressful as well being on that team. But like it was never like obviously. I don't know. It's actually a good question because how did I feel? It's something I've gotten better at reflecting on, like how I feel nowadays. But like back then, I was very just like floating. I think in a way, I
Just
didn't really
going with the
think
flow
about it.
kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. To be honest, like I think deep inside back then, obviously I was a bit sad about it, but like there was nothing I could do, and it relieved me from like the immediate stress there was, and like just so people know, it's not just like when an environment is very tense and like things are not going well and there's people that rely on you doing well, it becomes not just like, oh, you made this mistake, it becomes much more than that. I don't know how to explain it, but like um maybe a little bit toxic is the word, I think. But it was, yeah, but it, yeah, it's because people are so invested, you know, and so was I, you know. So I don't know, it is a lot of stress. I I keep saying the word stress, and I want to like make people understand what I mean because maybe they're just like, oh, okay, they lose a match they shouldn't have. That sucks, you know. Maybe someone will be like, ah, guys, that's not good. But it's really not like that. It's like you have one thing that everyone expects you to do, and you don't deliver on it, and it's your whole life. It's like
Right.
from morning to evening, that's the only thing you will hear people talk about. It's not like you just go home from work and you're like, oh, that was a bad day at the office. You know, it doesn't work like that. It's like you go talk to your friend and they're like, fuck, bro, you suck today at scrims, you know, or something like that. You know, everywhere you look, it's just like disaster. And not only for you, but just like for the entire team. You know,
Yeah.
there's no escape from it.
You,
So
if you, it's in the moment too. Nothing you can either take back. If you make a mistake doing something else, maybe you can take it back, fix it up or whatever. But you miss, you missed a blade, like you get slept, or like you
yeah,
miss a nade, like you missed a shadow, it gets blocked or whatever. Like that's it. That's that moment, that frame, that window, that window of time is just gone now. You can't replay that. That's it. It's done. And yeah,
yep,
there's like you mentioned previously as well, not something that you really take into account a lot of the time, the criticism from outside, but from the inside, it's like that is a stressful environment because everybody is also on the same page. They're so passionate and just want to win. And then if
yeah,
someone messes up, you know, and that's where a lot of the staffing comes into play as well. Speaking to a lot of coaches, managers, and stuff, and like mediating and whatnot can help. And do you find that with Peps? Do you find Peps is a very good team for that? Is it good at like kind of sitting down and just going through things and like going again, just like okay, it's all good. We're gonna form up, go again, and like almost like you mentioned before, your 2021 version of Paris Eternal. Do you feel like the same kind of vibe there?
so we had multiple teams on Peps, and we actually had both worlds. I had one where I had environments where I knew I would have to be the glue on the team for it to work, and also knowing that if we are gonna move forward with this team, I have these demands. Like, and one of them was like, if a scrim goes wrong or we're mad at each other, we have to talk it out after the scrim before anyone leaves. Because I've been on teams where you just show up for scrims, you play, you hate each other, you don't talk, you don't talk with each other like outside of the game. You don't want to. you stop the block, you call your friend on the team or someone else in the scene, and you're like, holy fuck, my team is the worst on this fucking play, and it just goes like that, and everyone will like back talk each other, and it's just a disaster. So like, and I could see that happen with the team we had earlier before it even like we created the team. I was like, we need to force these like conversations to happen, because I don't want to sit for 2 months and just know that people hate each other. Like there's no way I want to do that. I've done that before. I hate that. It's not worth my time. Now, like, we are really good at that, and I think I've also gotten better as a player to avoid putting myself in environments like that by trying to de-escalate, but also try to glue people together and try to force tough conversations, basically. So now I think our environment is super healthy on the team we have right now, and I mean it shows in the results as well. I think
Yeah,
those
it
things are
does.
typically correlated a lot, to be honest.
It does.
Um,
I mean, I think Team Peps right now, like obviously, it's been an org for quite some time, but this is definitely kind of the most success I think it's had. Obviously, with OWCS existing now, it's easy to kind of say that because Peps wasn't like an Overwatch League org, but the level of play and like your team right now, it extremely good. Like Exodia has been
yeah,
like a just an unbelievable like DPS player that's come out of nowhere, and he's surrounded by like a bunch of old heads that have, like yourself, who've been around so many different teams and environments and like different levels of play that I think there's such a good mixture there that Team Peps comes across, and anyway, at least as like not like a family almost in like
yeah,
just accepting of other players and players that have been around the block. FD God as well is the same, right? He's been around the block too. He's been in the Overwatch League before. He was on
yeah,
the Shock before. Like he's been in those kind of environments.
yep. And I think something that amplifies this kind of environment is that when you give people the opportunity, because like I find the three rookies, I will call them rookies, but they're not really. Like Krook, as an example, he has won contenders before, so
Right.
it's I'm not gonna call him a rookie, but I am. But anyways, they're incredibly underrated, and they would have gotten good teams. But I still think this is like a better opportunity that they could have gotten anywhere else, right? And I think when you give people opportunity to shine, it usually that like trust and opportunity you give them is gonna like make things a little bit easier as well. Like the mindset people goes into the team with, like this is a if people are positive going into the project, it's gonna turn out a lot better than if people are just like, I don't know, I could have gotten a better team, or
Right.
am I playing with these players? Like
Yeah.
that kind of mindset. Mindset means so
Complacency
much, I
almost.
think. Complacency, yes. Or like what you feel like you deserve. Like if
Right.
I will have to play with the FC guard and Naga. Oh my god, dude, not again. Like if you have players that come onto your team and have that mindset, it's like you would rather have someone that is worse than them, to be honest.
Yeah, because
I,
at
I
least
really
they're
think so.
positive attitude and they're coming in and
Yeah,
just being like, okay, we're going to do well. But if we're not, then that's fine. We can just improve on that rather than almost it goes into you need to sit down and actually talk. Players that don't want to do that, it's just going to make the team worse. And players that want to
yep,
be there, but maybe they're not as good, they're going to want to be the ones that want to improve and want to help the rest of the team as well. And obviously, you
yeah.
guys didn't end up qualifying for Dallas, which sucks. Like, and going up against Ensign Space Station, like those teams are obviously ridiculous. But have you got any kind of expectations going into the next stage?
Mm, So I put up my expectations a bit after seeing how we perform, and I think we all have. And that's also a little bit of a dangerous path to take, to be honest. But it's good to strive for big goals. But right now we're playing the qualifier for the EWC,
Yeah,
and it's top three and maybe four, depending on how the European teams does in Dallas. And I would be super excited to make through that qualification, and I think it's quite doable as well. So, and for OWC, I think as long as we're competitive amongst the top three teams, that's like my goal. And I think the showing against Ins last time was not great, and it was also like a big part was on me as well. But also we just like due to maybe inexperience crumbled a little bit under like the pressure. At least that's what like I've been told after people listened in on our communication and things like that, and it was not what it usually is. So there's that as well. But yeah, as long as we can compete against the top teams and we can pull off results against them, then that's like that's the expectations I basically have. I don't want to. Actually, twice in the past half year, I considered before getting on the team to just like not play Overwatch anymore, because I didn't want to play Overwatch if I was on a team where I just knew like, okay, we're gonna guarantee to get top 6, maybe top 8, but nothing more than that. And I really dislike kind of, and maybe that's just like a little bit pessimistic as well to be like that, going onto a team and be like, okay, we're not gonna get more than top 6. But I don't know. I'm typically very optimistic. So when I have a feeling that this team is just not it, then I think I'd rather like Overwatch for me right now is it's more like I would love to play at the highest level and I will, but I'm not gonna force to play Overwatch just for the sake of doing it. Like when I was in Overwatch League, I even was the one in Overwatch League that had been on the most teams in their entire career. And I don't regret that. Like I've been on a lot of nice teams and played with a lot of nice people, and I've learned a lot on every single team. But like in the past 1 or 2 years, sometimes I've been like, did I really have to play that season? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
sometimes, yeah, if you're not feeling it, or maybe you come into a team and you're like, this isn't a team set up for success, or like maybe there's some
yeah.
more pessimistic players. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. But I mean, you have been on a lot of teams. If I'll put it in the description as well, but or just go on Wikipedia and look at Naga's page, and it's just the team list is extensive. And I mean, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, but I mean, it's been working out for you so far. So I mean, different experiences also build character, and they build a better player, I think, at the end of the day. Unless you're like literally just jumping from team to team to team every other month, like being in different
And
environments will help in the long run, I think.
it was like that for some time where I was just jumping quite often. But I will say in my defense, the reason why it looks so excessive with the teams I've been on is because a lot of the time, especially back in the days, teams would just simply change name.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
that's true.
I was on Goats, then I was on First Generation, then I was Second Generation, then I was Montreal Rebellion, which was the Academy of Toronto, and all these 4 teams was essentially the same.
Yeah.
Like small changes, but essentially the same. I mean, you can hear it: First Generation, Second Generation. Like it was just us changing their name from one season to the other, and like it's been like that many many times. But yeah, I always love to play, so
Yeah.
I will keep doing that. And also, I'm studying right now while I play,
Oh, okay. What are you studying?
so I'm actually so I finished. Oh, I don't know how well this correlates into other people's school system, but basically, I went full time after what we call elementary school. I went
Hmm.
10th grade, which is like unnecessary year, but one you can just take to like heighten your levels a little bit, but without like committing to high school or whatever.
Okay.
And I got to like play full time halfway through that 10th grade. I played from Copenhagen Flames, and it it also is a bit sad, but like back then, academy teams and teams like Copenhagen Flames, you would earn more than you do on the best teams today. Just so people know what the levels of salary are these days. You earn so little. You guys have seen Gunvas tweet and how he's like retired because of it. But like there was really a lot more money in Overwatch back then. But basically, since I was 17, I've been full time since I was 21, I think.
Okay.
And then I've been studying high school online, where I don't have to be there physically, on and off since Paris, actually before Paris as well. And now I'm finishing up like the very last courses I have. I'm going to exam in like 10 days, and then I have half a year or a year left, depending on like how aggressive I want to do it. So I'm also moving forward with other things while I'm playing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's a
Uh,
really good thing to do. Like super good. Is there anything you're like? Are you
yeah.
studying something in particular, or is this like just across the board, like different kind of studies? Is there anything you're kind of focusing on
Across the board. Yeah,
across the
it's
board?
across the board, and then I can go uni after it. But I
Okay.
don't even have like a set thing I'm gonna do after. Like it depends where Overwatch is at that time
Sure.
and what I would like to try after. Like there's
Yeah.
so many. Like I've always been very I don't see life that linear. I see it more as as an example, maybe many people will look down upon someone who is like 20 and works at a supermarket. But the way I see it is that if that person is truly dedicated to the supermarket, they're only like 3 or 4 years from being like very high up in that supermarket, like up the ladder essentially, right? So for me, it's like you can go in so many directions, and that's why it's not linear. But as long as you see the position you're in as a position that can lead or will lead to something, like you have a goal to like go somewhere next with it, then I don't mind being there, basically. Like if it can be anything. So
Yeah.
I don't see it's like I'm finishing high school, then I'm going to uni. I want to
Right.
study this. I'm going to get into a job. Like I don't have my next 10 years planned out like that. It could turn out that I'm just like, wow, this study at the uni is like, wow, economics or wow, law or whatever, you know? It could be the case, but it could also just be the case that I'm like, I don't know, I don't know, starting my own electronic brand. I don't know. I was
Sure.
just looking at a headset on my wall and I was just like, why not? Why not, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, as long as you're passionate about that one thing, then you can work your way up and you're not really tied to that one role or whatever, you can go from to a manager and like then to regional manager, like that kind
Exactly.
of stuff. Yeah. Is there anything that
Yeah.
kind of interests you, like that you'd want to pursue into university? Is there a subject you've always been like super passionate about? Or is it again something you've not
Oh,
really thought about?
I had many. I have many. And the way I came up with these is that I just looked at like what I do in my daily life without actually having to. So
Okay.
like pure out of interest. I listen to a lot of political podcasts, economics as well, and also psychology in the sense where it's like uh, with habits and like mindset, all these things always interested me a lot specifically as well during esports. Like we have I don't know if you know, but we have Askov that just finished. He's like an old Overwatch coach in
Yeah.
Overwatch League
Ask off, yeah.
for
Yeah.
but Boston. I think also other teams, but he's like our what do you call it? He's like our psychologist or whatever in the team.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know how
okay.
to the title right, and that's super interesting as well. Like I have a lot of good talks with him, and there's a lot of things in one's mind that we don't really understand. You know, a lot of things we don't reflect on that are super interesting as well. So I have, as you can tell, I've always been someone that has probably too many directions I would like to go, but maybe that's better than none, I guess. So
100%. Yeah. If you've got
yeah,
a ton of interest and you're like following them each individually, one will
yeah,
click eventually that you're like, oh, I want to go to the next level of that. I think it's good. It's better to have like 10 interests versus none or one.
yeah, I
Like
guess.
it's good to be focused in something, but your life and like you mentioned can pivot and it has done for you really. I mean, a lot of Overwatch
Yeah,
League players, a lot of especially in the Overwatch League, like you're taking a break basically. You're like, I can't do university. I could kind of study, but like it's so full time that you're taking such a break that you're so focused in. But in reality, there's so many different branches you can go towards. You can, I
sure.
a very not a silly example, but like Connor, like Avast, right? Like he played for Boston, he played Lucio player, he'll bot only Lucio player in season one. He didn't get one game, he got a preseason game, I think, but then he just esports, and then now he works for NRG, was working for Misfits, and there's lots of ways and pathways you can go towards. So yeah, I think it's very much a good thing. I think you just keeping every door open possible and
Yeah,
going from there. No, it's
just
sick.
need to get a little better at opening one door and not open five doors,
Oh,
basically.
yeah, no, I
Yeah,
feel that.
yeah,
Was there
yeah.
any like dream job you had when you were younger? Did you ever think was it being a
Ooh.
pro gamer? I'm not sure, but was there anything back then you were like, "Oh, I would want to be this as a kid," or were you in the same kind of mindset as you are now?
I actually never have felt that. I've never looked at pro gaming and been like, oh, I need to become a pro gamer. To be honest, truly. And oh my god, that opens such a big subject, just that alone. But like, I just quickly want to explain that to
Yeah,
people watching.
do it.
I think if you have interest in like in becoming a pro gamer, you should really be careful of like having that mindset too early in the progress because it will make the journey a lot harder if you have such a big goal from the very get-go. You need to take step by step to not get overwhelmed. As an example, if I'm downloading Overwatch and I'm like, wow, I want to be like proper right now. I'm gonna feel like a failure for the next 5 years if I even then get to become proper. Like I probably might not even ever become proper. So like having that unrealistic, like too big of a goal in the very beginning is like very damaging. I feel like. So I never felt that I have to become. Oh, I have to become like this pro player, whatever. I never felt like that. I just like one day at a time, like, wow, this is fun, like, oh, a new challenge there. Oh, we're playing this tournament. Or what teams could we beat? Like these kind of things, step by step by step. So when you ask me, like, have I ever had like a dream job? Hmm, not really, to be honest. I I've later came to see that I really like to travel. I don't
Okay.
know what it is, but when I'm in a plane, I don't know. Like I've also flown a lot, to be fair,
Yeah.
but I like it a lot. I don't know. It's like maybe it's just because like I'm going and doing something like anywhere.
Yeah,
Maybe
experiencing
that's the
something
part I
else.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
maybe that's what I like. But I really like that. So if I had a job where I would have to travel a lot, I probably would like it. But I also like just staying somewhere. It's not like
Right, yeah.
yeah.
I'll
But
uh,
so yeah.
I'll ask you these two questions before we wrap up. Just they're not that simple. I was going to say they're simple questions, but what is your biggest regret in your career so far? Is there anything you look back on, you're like, oh, should have done this differently, or I wish it went this way instead of that way?
So maybe people can take this as a small life lesson for a very young 23-year-old man, if you can even take life lessons for someone like that.
Absolutely, you
But
can.
truly, like I've been playing for so long, and I think the biggest takeaway is that, and it opens a huge door to another subject, but like I can try and make it very short. Consistency, right? Like I think I would have gotten a lot better if I was truly like 100% consistent throughout the entire time I played Overwatch. I've always been pretty hardworking, but like uh, consistency in the sense that you don't autopilot that much. So like every time you turn up for scrim, you have like minor goals for yourself. You have like some kind of expectations of how you want to do. Um, you don't just randomly start streaming for 10 hours, like a random day, because streaming isn't the best way to improve, as an example. Or like there's a lot of things like that where I think consistency would have served me a lot. And truly, just the small door it opens is that I realized that when I started playing Overwatch, it was pure out of passion. And now, no, it was pure out of motivation and passion. And now
Right.
later, as you go into the journey, it becomes a lot more self-discipline. And that was something I really had to like learn, and it's something I'm still learning now, because that is just like endless to master that self-discipline. But yeah, trying to stay consistent and just like put in a lot of small effort over a long period of time, instead of like having ups and downs of like burst effort. Oh, this week you played fucking 80 hours, but next week you only played 30, Like that kind of consistency would matter a lot. So regret is like not being as consistent, I think.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
second regret maybe being like not being like I don't like conflict, so I try to avoid it, which means that I also a lot of the time don't say my honest opinion all the time, basically. Yeah, these two probably. I've gotten better at that, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. Well, as long as you can look back on it and reflect on it, and then you can improve, right, for the next time.
Yeah.
That's what's important. Flipping that on the other side, then, what's been the highlight of your career so far?
Hmm. It has to be. I just told Fefe when we were in Lyon last week, or was it 1.5 weeks ago, that I think in 10 years, the things I'll remember the most are being on stages like the one we're on there, because being physically there and seeing people and signing autographs and these kind of things is like where you truly realize how much weight the thing you're doing has, compared to like sitting at home and playing Overwatch League. But I think right now I would have to say like reverse sweeping Glads, something like that, like against all odds in Overwatch League, and then like going to your parents, in the living room and be like, "Whoa, we actually
Yeah.
did that," and they're just like, "Whoa, yeah, you actually did that," and like, yeah, it's like, yeah,
I think
I
those are
think
moments
that,
you're they're hard to come by, you know, like those things that are going to stick with you for a long, long time. But yeah, those things, I think you'll probably take them with you to your grave, you know, and
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
sick. Especially, you know, being so young as well. Like you you wouldn't have imagined yourself being in a situation like that. You're playing pro matches like that, or like you mentioned before, being on stage, signing autographs and stuff. Like that is something
Yeah,
that your younger self would. That's what I always think as what for myself. Like my younger self would not believe where I am now, and like what I'm doing, what I am
yeah.
now. And those are the things I think you will take with you for a long, long time. Exactly. Yeah, I can see exactly where you're coming from. All right, Naga, is there anything you want to kind of shout out? I'll leave the floor open to you if you want to talk about anything here, and then we'll sign off.
I would shout out my brother because we didn't really talk about him, but just so people know, he's a professional Rainbow Six Siege player,
Oh,
and actually from for G2 right now, he won Worlds 2 years ago, and they came fourth or
oh,
third last
shit!
year.
I did not know that. Oh my god! Wait, what's his
Okay, well
handle?
now you do. Benjamaster.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'll have to
But
let Des know. Oh my god.
I guess what I want to say with that is like, well, he has really achieved a lot more than me. But what I want to say with that is that it's not really all luck, to be honest. And also, if I were more consistent, I think I also would have seen greater things. But you can look at both me and my brother and be like, okay, what's the chance of two brothers from the same family both playing pro and getting to do that full time because they wanted to? Like, what's the chance of that, right? Like, so maybe use
Right.
that as like a validation that if you want something, don't let people fool you to think that it's too. Like, actually, I had a family member say when we were like 12 at a family birthday party that we were actually looking at like an esports event, and he went like, the chance of you becoming pro is like so low, you know? It's like almost no one does it. He didn't say don't go for it, but he basically said that. And now here we are. We both played professionally and flown all over the world, traveled the world. Uh, some earned a little bit more money than others, but you know, we have done fine for ourselves. But yeah, you can really actually do it. You know, it's there's a lot of footballers that is the same thing, like multiple people in the family becoming professional footballers, and maybe that like that's arguably way harder, even like especially
Yeah,
at the
for
very high
sure.
level. Like, what's the chance of that? You know.
Yeah.
So don't let people make you think that it's impossible or that it comes down to too much luck. If you really want it, you can actually really do it. Like, really.
There you go. That's good advice. Really good advice, in fact. And that's a fun fact I had no clue about. Yeah, there you go. Two pro gamers in the family. That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Very few of those around. I think probably the most famous ones is Ogre 1, Ogre 2 back in like Halo 2, Halo
Oh,
3 era.
I don't even know them.
Yeah, they're
What?
twins as well, which is insane.
Oh,
Yeah, but
damn.
that's a very rare thing to happen. And there you go. You're part of that selective small group, I suppose, where there are two pro
I
players
guess.
in the family. All right. Well, I appreciate you for stopping by, Naga. Good luck in your next stage. I'll put all your links, everybody, down below. If you're on Spotify or Apple Music or whatnot, you can go on the YouTube and find Naga's links to Instagram and Twitter and whatnot and Twitch. But thanks so much for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, George. My pleasure, bro.